The late 60s were a complicated time for the Beatles. It's actually unbelievable that they somehow released 4 more albums after Magical Mystery Tour. The reason is simple: the recording of the White Album was absolute hell for the Beatles. The release of Yellow Submarine was underwhelming to say the least. And even when they tried to go for something a little different in Let It Be, treating the recording with a more organic approach, there were still lots of arguments about the sound the album should have had. So if you or a member of the band have already been working on solo stuff on the side and are having such a bad time in the recordings, why on earth go for another album? Well, since they believed the Let It Be recordings were a failure, they wanted to try and go for one last push. One last album to properly close the band's discography. Though they probably didn't know for sure if they would break up after, they certainly knew these would be the last recordings for a while. This made the recordings way more peaceful, ideas were floating all over the place, and the result was one of the greatest albums of all time, Abbey Road. There were still some arguments, especially when John set up a bed in the studio for Yoko, but the overall atmosphere was positive. And although in any other story this would have been enough to make them try one more time, in the case of the Beatles this was nothing but confirmation that their band was beyond saving.